Hello everybody, my name is Jared and today we're going to be working on the Yukata version of Shoto Todoroki from Boku no Hero Academia. This is a fan design based on a fan artwork that we found, but it's actually a original design that we've come up with ourselves. I'll insert our artwork for it here. This isn't exactly what it's going to look like because we did make some changes, including changing the gradient to a split colour and simplifying the design just because later on we're going to embellish it for a later event. I also will insert the original artwork that this concept is based on here, and I've created a work log for that one as well that you can also find on my page. This is the last segment where we're going to be making the actual yukata as well as the mask that goes with it. So without further ado, we're going to cut to Past Me, go. Here I took a basic simplicity pattern for the yukata. You can find yukata patterns pretty much everywhere, and you can also find free to download ones I believe online. If you just put in kimono or yukata pattern, it will usually come up. I've also extended my one to make it a full length one. It was originally a short gi version, and you can shorten and lengthen that to however long you'd like your costume to be. The sleeves for my one are going to be massively oversized. I want them to hang over my hands, and it's going to cut a little bit above the middle of my lower leg. All I did to extend them was to measure the amount that I want the difference to be and then add that on in paper. It's a very simple process. All of your pattern pieces will have an amount of times you have to cut that out to make the entire outfit. What you want to do is to cut out all of the ones that are meant to be two pieces only once, so half the amounts for all of the yukata itself, and you're going to cut both of those out in different colours. So you're going to cut one in all blue, one in all white. You should have a body, a front, a back, and the sleeves at this point. Then you're going to take the trim piece that comes with your yukata and you're going to cut that out in the opposite grey colours. It'll make a little bit more sense as you can see the process going along, but it will mean that you have a trim that is the opposite colour for both sides as it goes around. This is going to give a really interesting contrast to your yukata. You will also have cut the side straps, those in the correct colours for either side. You don't want those to stand out too much. Then fold the side straps in half, and you want them to still stay just as long, but half in thickness, and you need to press those with your iron. Pin the back body pieces together down that long seam down the back, so you need one white piece, one blue piece. Pin them together, and then you're going to sew that line all the way down the bottom. Press the seam open, so you're going to split it in the middle so there's no bulk in the seam, and then sew both of those edges flat. If you sew them close enough to the seam, you won't even really be able to see them when you're actually finished. It's a good way to speed up a hemming process, especially if you don't have an overlocker. You're then going to take those straps that we pressed earlier, and then we're going to sew all the way around except for the one open end. So you need to just leave one end open of each of them, and you're just going to use that so that it can actually be turned out later on. So you're going to turn it inside out once it's finished. Sew the two contrast trims together at the thin end, so you're making a really long piece of fabric that changes colour halfway through, and hem that the same way you did the body. You're then going to turn your straps inside out and then press them flat again so that you have basically a completely hemmed piece of fabric that has no raw edges. And then once it's pressed flat, you can actually sew around those edges to keep it really crisp. You're then going to need to pin your front pieces just at the shoulders to the back pieces. So you just take those shoulder seams, pin them across the top, and then you take the two side seams, they should fall naturally against each other at this point, and sandwich the straps in between those seams so they're going into the costume, and you're only going to pin all the way up to where the sleeve should start. Sew all of the seams that you've just pinned, press them open again, and then hem them in the same way as you previously did. Then you need to fold the sleeves in half together, and then pin all of the underarm seam, sew that together, and then press those hems open as well. Then pin your sleeves into the shoulder, just at that big hole you've left behind. Sew those on, and again press and hem them. And you need to repeat that for your white side as well, so I've just shown you the blue side, but you need to do both of those for the white side until you've got that all put together. So you should now have the entire body of the yukata without the details and hemming, and without the trim attached. Then you're going to pin on the trim to the yukata all the way around those middle edges, all the way around the seam that is going to go up from the middle of your front all the way up and around your neck. So once you've pinned that, you're just going to need to sew it and then hem it in the same way you have the previous ones. Then you need to make a 1 centimeter fold into the rough edges, so up towards the rough inside of the yukata. And that 1 centimeter seam you then fold up again, so you've got a centimeter folded up and then fold it up by another centimeter, so all of the clean edges are the only thing visible and you won't be able to see the rough edge. Then iron it flat and sew those folds flat. Repeat that for the edges of the sleeves. Then fold the trim the same 1 centimeter but not another centimeter, so you just do 1 centimeter fold this time, so the trim all the way around has got that 1 centimeter fold. Then fold the entire what you've got left of the trim in half, and this should hide the seam, so you should be able to completely conceal the seam of the trim in this little fold and have a really neat edge all the way around. And then you're going to sew along those as well, and then press them and sew that open edge all the way around, so all of it is pressed and beautiful and flat. It is hard to verbally explain, but that is essentially your finished yukata. As I said before as well, I am planning to embellish this section a considerable amount when I work on the costume next. Next we're going to work on the mask. What we're going to do is we're going to take a base cat mask. I got mine from Hobbycraft, but I believe there are American companies like Hobby Lobby and things if you do live in that kind of area. And you just want to take that cat mask and cover that entirely with Warbler Black. I use Warbler Black because it's a little bit smoother, but I also find I get better sticking results than things like Fibra. I use a heat gun to mold the Warbler. If you've ever worked with Warbler, it is a thermoplastic, so you can actually melt it with a heat gun, and it doesn't melt to a liquid, it just melts to a pliable sheet. And we just press all of that Warbler into the shape of the mask and fold it just about half a centimeter around the edges of the mask. Just take your time with this, don't work with the Warbler when it's too hot, and make sure you're just really gently pressing it into all of those indents and areas. And if you find you're getting too much resistance for a certain area, just move things over, try again, and wait for it to cool back down before you reheat it again. You also will need to cut out the holes for the eyes. I actually used a craft knife for this, Once you're finished with that, you're just going to prime the entire thing with Mod Podge. Mod Podge is basically a craft glue, but it's really good because it helps to give a smooth finish, especially when you use multiple layers. Then I painted it white 3 times. I then painted on the details. Really, this is just following your reference, but I gave it like a cat eye with a little swirl. I used specific colours of like a pastel purple, black, a warm mustard yellow, a blue, a sort of pinky red, just kind of following the colours of the actual design that I'm going from. I tried to keep all of them really muted shades. I also added the detail of the whiskers because I thought that was quite cute. I used acrylic paint for this section. I then used a little bit of black and mixed in red to add a gradient to the ears so that they would look more 3D. So that's just the inside section of the ears. I then took a deep red cord and attached that to the sides of the mask so that it could attach easily around my head and I could just tie it like a rope. I then took that same red cord and looped it into like a spiral shape, quite a small one, about I would say the size of a 20p piece, and then made little loops of that red cord all going behind this so that it created a flower shape. I attached all of that with hot glue. I then hot glued on my tassels that I had bought as well, and attached both of those to the mask, covering up that seam that the red cord is attached by. And that is my finished costume. Thank you very much for watching. If you learnt anything, please do let me know. It would be really cool if I could find out if you are working on any costumes that this has helped with. And really, again, I do really appreciate the people who've been watching my channel. And like, favourite and subscribe, is that what YouTubers usually say? If you want to see how to make the details for this costume, like the sash and the big old bow that goes with it, you can look in my part 1 for this costume, which will be in the description below. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, please remember to be creepy.